up his divinity, verse 7 says, but made himself of no reputation. That word means to empty. He emptied, in other words, himself. How? He emptied himself by taking the form of a slave, of a human being, to provide salvation and redemption for humanity. He emptied himself. He didn't give up his divinity, but he took on something to provide salvation for somebody else, but made himself of no reputation. Emptied himself, if you will, and took upon him. That means he began to adopt. He began to accept. He began to attain, if you will, the form, not this time of God, but the form of a, not even man, but of a slave. He didn't take on the nature just of a man now. He took on the nature, I'm talking about mentality now, attitude, of a slave servant there, that slave. What that means? That basically means that you give up, or you give yourself over to the will of another servant. You give up yourself to the will of another. You condescend. You become, in other words, to some degree, inferior to a superior. Now he is the superior, and he's willing to accept and adopt a external. This is more external. The other one was internal, form of God. That's internal. Form of a servant. That's external. Now he's willing to adopt and accept the external appearance of a slave. I'm talking about the King of Kings, the God of God, the Lord of Lords, the Creator of everything. Wanna take on the external appearance of a slave. Man. Can you imagine you the CEO and you willing to give that up to become the janitor? And you the one established the business. That's why I don't have no problem cutting the grass every now and then. I try to beat Deacon Baldwin up here every now and then. I say, I hope he ain't got there yet. I don't want to cut the grass. The pastor? I want to park cars. The pastor? You ought to let somebody else do that. They don't want to do it. They ain't got that kind of attitude. They don't know what it means to serve God. You get caught up with your position and your title and what you've been given, and you want to hold on to it, and you want everybody to know you for that position. You don't have no attitude to humble yourself and serve. Get involved with a service that's demeaning and condescending. Let somebody else do that. I'm the pastor. I'm the bishop. No, we're talking about God adopting the external appearance of a slave. Not just a man, a slave. A slave is viewed as less than a man. You ain't got no rights. When the master's sick, we sick. We sick? That's the mentality you got when you're a slave. We sick. If the master's sick, I'm sick too. Because your will is lost in his. He took on the form of a slave. Yeah, that's, and then he makes it a little bit more clear here. He says, and was made in the likeness, in the reflection, in the representation, in the resemblance of what? Human beings. How that happened? In his incarnation. That's referring to his birth. God, spirit, putting on flesh. Sinful flesh. Although he was like men, he wasn't like men because he was still sinless because of his inner nature in the form of God. In the form of God. But yet he adopted the appearance of a human being. Condescension is an ingredient for humility. That's why some folk can't be humble. Why? They're unwilling in their mind to condescend. In their mind. And see, it starts in your mentality, your attitude. See, some folks don't think like that. Man, I ain't doing that. 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 I ain't trying to say anything big. I ain't doing that. I ain't finna clean no toilets. I ain't finna wipe nobody behind. I remember one time Miss Cramper had did some stuff. I had to go over there and I had to get in there. I had to get in there and get it. That's what love does sometimes. And every now and then it's a test of your humility. Because sometimes you think you're too good to do something bad like that. I ain't cleaning nobody behind. Somebody cleaned your behind, and if you keep living, you better hope somebody, God, put that to wipe your butt. You came in here with somebody wiping it, and if you live long, you'll leave out of here, and somebody going to have to wipe your butt. Condescension, consideration is what contributes to humility so that there can be unity in the body. Look at it again here in verse number 8. Here's the third thing. Now here's where it really gets ugly at. Crucifixion. Wow. Boy, it's one thing to take on a form of a slave. But boy, look at this part. Crucifixion. Not just kill him. Not just shoot him in the back and he just die or you stab me. No, crucifixion. The worst punishment a criminal can receive. I'm talking about God, who ain't never did nothing wrong. Get the worst punishment that a criminal should receive. Boy, that's the kind of attitude you got to have. You willing to humble yourself to death, not just death, but the death of the cross. It's one thing to die with some kind of honor, with some kind of dignity. But to die in a degrading and humiliating way, as if you are guilty and worthy of your punishment, and you okay with that. That's the kind of attitude you need. That's the kind of attitude, that's the kind of disposition we need in the church. People who don't mind suffering for God. Verse 8, and being found in fashion. That means in an external condition. Being found in fashion as a man, in the external condition of a human being. Look what he did. He humbled himself. He humbled himself. He abased himself. And how did he express it? And became, here it is, here's the real root of humility, obedient. That's how you know somebody humble. That's a real litmus test. They are obedient. Ultimately to God, even when it requires suffering. Because some people don't mind obeying God long as it's gratifying and glorifying. But when it's suffering, humiliation, man, you get caught up with perception. People might think I'm guilty. People might think I done did something wrong. You know, people might think, what about God? What about what people think? He became obedient, yeah. Yeah. In a manger. In a barn. The king. The one who made the barn. Yeah. I mean, that's why he is the ultimate supreme example that we're supposed to emulate, because what we are seeing him about here, what we're seeing about Jesus, is his attitude. His attitude, consideration, condescension, and look at the fruit of it, crucifixion. Crucifixion. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient, submissive, subordinate unto death. More specifically, even the death of the cross. He didn't just die, a humiliating death. They did that to the worst of criminals. And here go a man who never committed a crime. But it reveals the essence of his humility, his attitude.